Today, we're going to be replacing the transmission in this Jeep Patriot. It has the CVT, and this is a four-wheel drive variant. To complete this task, we're going to want to drain out this transmission. We're going to want to drain out the PTU, and we are going to want to remove our driveline along with our axles. Looking underneath at this pan, what we have is 18 10mm bolts that will need to be removed to drop out this pan and drain it. To prep, grab yourself a little metal tray to put all these bolts in. As you can see, we are already starting to have some fluid come out. We're going to sit and let this drain for just a second before I remove these rear bolts, which I could have started back here and actually had this tilt down, but this is working just fine. This is saving you from making a mess. I'll get those out with a magnet now. Just like that, we're dropping her down. After you've let it drain, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this back, okay? Just like that. And I'm going to spin it up. These are very small bolts, so I'm gonna be very careful. I do not wanna strip these bolts out. So we're just gonna put one in each corner. At this point, it would be a good time if you're going to replace the gasket and filter. Gasket and filter on this particular car are already done. Let's wipe this clean. Now that that is done, what we're going to do next is we're going to drain the PTU. Move your pan just slightly over right here. And right here is your drain plug for the PTU. This will be a 10mm Allen. Let that drain out. While we wait for that to happen, we can now move on to the next step. Next step I like to do with every single project. Remove this guy right here underneath the hood, and then remove your battery. Your battery has two 10mm bolts on the clamps. Just undo them and then pull your battery out, and then we can move back to underneath the car. The next thing we are going to want to remove is our driveline. We have four 13mm bolts for this flange here. Moving forward, a bolt here and a bolt here holding the center support bearing in place. Since you are moving this is a good time to inspect your center support bearing and make sure it's still in good shape. We also have these bolts here. These will need to be removed in order to access this bolt up here. And then finally, in the front, this part will actually just slide out once these two are removed. All right, let's crack on with it. 14mm. After you've removed all four of those nuts, what you're going to do is you're going to set these to the side. You can set these in your tray. Afterwards, after we remove the center support bearing, we are going to pop this out and we are going to put these back on the thread so that we do not misplace or lose these. Next, we have these three heat shield nuts. What you're going to do is just zip them up. They are 13mm. Drop that out. Now set this off to the side. Now you can either put these bolts with your heat shield, or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thread them back. Can't lose them, can't put them in a different spot if they go exactly where they're supposed to. Next, what we're going to do is we have a 16mm bolt here and a 16mm bolt here. This will drop out the center support bearing. I like to do this one first, and then this one second, and then carefully lower that down. What we're going to do with our bolts is we're going to put them back. Have as little bolts as you can inside your tray as possible. Going back to the back of the car, what you're going to do is just lift back up on the center support bearing and push forward, and then that should come out. Now carefully lower this down. Once you have lowered it down on that side, then you can just pull back. See how that is coming right out? Carefully do it. Just like that, and then move this to the side. I strongly recommend that the seal is to be replaced. Now back at the back of the car, what we're going to do is we're going to take our four 14mm bolts, nuts I should say, and we're going to put them right back on these studs. That way everything is accounted for that we have taken off so far, just like that. Now right here is optional. You can put your heat shield in place and then put your nuts over that, and then everything right here is right where it should be. Optional, moving to the next step. Our next step is we're going to be wanting to remove these front axles. With this particular part, what I'm going to be ended up doing is I'm just going to pop these axles out. I will link a more detailed video if you would like that on how to remove these, but we're trying to do the transmission video. Link in the description or up in the corner. Let's crack on with it. Once your axles have been removed, we're now going to work on removing the PTU because there's a couple bolts that are going to be a little bit more difficult to access on the bell housing if the PTU is still in the way. So let's get to that. Starting with the PTU, we have these 3 bottom bolts right here. They're all 14 millimeter. They're all the same length. Set them all to the side in your magnetic tray. Now there's going to be a few of these that are harder to see, but right there, I'll circle it. That bolt right back in there, you're going to want that guy. Kind of hard to film it. It's kind of, I'm in an awkward position. Look at me. Just trying to show you. Now, unfortunately, there's not going to be a good way for me to film taking those bolts out. What I am going to do is I am going to show you the setup that I used on my impacts to get those 2 bolts out, and then I'll get back to you. So here's the setup for the first bolt. So I have a 14 millimeter on a wobbly. Then I have a 10-inch extension, and then I have a 3-inch extension here. The bolt is up against the exhaust. So what I did was I reached in here, just push this out of the way, and I snuck it in like here. Now, when you're backing the bolt out, don't go too far because the wobbly will get stuck. So what you want to do is you want to back it out as far as you can while still getting this out, and then reach in there and grab it out with your hand. Now, as for the next bolt I was talking about, what you're going to do is you're going to change up your setup. Now you're going to take your 14 millimeter to your 3-inch extension to your wobbly to your 10-inch extension. And then you will come in here like this. You will reach over the top, just like so. And then this will bend down the 10-inch extension so that you can access it with your gun. Alternatively, if you wanted more room, you could add an additional 10-inch extension here to get it further out, easier access for the gun. Choice is yours there. Now, there is some other things we could do while we're underneath, like remove some torque converter bolts and some of the lower bell housing bolts, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stay focused with the PTU. So we are as far as we can go as of right now on the bottom. So I'm going to show you there's a couple bolts that we need to access from the top before we can start wiggling the transfer case / PTU out. So let's get to that. These are pretty straightforward. You have a little clip right here. Just push this down right here in the middle, just like that. And then just pull this up, just like that, right? Pull it, carefully wiggle it out, and set it to the side. Do it again. Wiggle it out, and move it out of the way. Now you have a 10 millimeter right here. Move that off to the side. Again, push down on this clip on the back. You can see it will start bouncing up. Carefully remove the connector. All right, now we are going to disconnect this box, which I'm going to use an 8 millimeter on this clamp, which I have already done. So what you'll do is then pop this off. What I'm going to use is a small screwdriver to pop it out. What you're going to want to start doing is wiggling it back and forth till it pops out like that. And after you've broke the suction from this pipe to the air box, now carefully remove. Now this is your ECU. What you want to do is you want to take this and you want to put this somewhere dry and clean. Do not want this to get messed up. Now that we have the box out, we can see what needs disconnected now. In order to create some room, we're going to remove this battery tray here. We're going to remove this bracket here, and then we're going to continue. So with this, you have 4 13 millimeter bolts and you have a 13 millimeter nut right here. Going to be using a 3-inch extension with a 13 millimeter. Shallow. Now, once that is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up all of these because I'm going to wiggle out the tray. Now, following our usual steps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace everything back where it came from. You should have something looking a little bit like that. Now, we're going to remove this bracket here. This bracket. It's held on by a 13 millimeter here. If you look underneath this fuse block, there's a 13 millimeter tucked in there hiding from you. And then there is a 13 millimeter right here. Only difference here this time is we'll be using a deep 13 millimeter ratchet 13 millimeter. This bracket should just pop right out, just like that. And there you are. Put our bolts back on the studs. At this point in time, I strongly recommend that you replace this housing. If you have never touched this housing, this is your thermostat housing. It has 2 thermostats in it. This is made out of plastic normally, and this is right on the engine. This goes bad, cracks out really bad because of the plastic. So I highly recommend you replace it. I mean, either with an OE plastic one or you get one of these new aluminum housings, either or. If you're going to buy the aluminum housing, make sure that you upgrade the thermostats that come with it. You do not want to run them. Our next bolt, this is going to be tough to see, because we are not removing the housing right here. We are going to want to remove this bolt. In order to get that next bell housing bolt out that I just showed you, I busted it loose with a flex head 3/8 ratchet, like this, with a shallow 13 millimeter, or 14 millimeter, I should say, excuse me. Then I took this flex head 3/8 stubby, put my 14 on there, and did it the rest of the way until I could reach in, grab with my hand, and pull the bolt out. Now, after all that is done, you'll be able to take a pry bar and put it in between the transmission and the transfer case and pop it out. Now being fully disconnected, I can show you the bolt that's going to be a really big problem for you if you do not remove this first. Looking up right there, right above the splines, you see it? You're going to want to get that bolt out. That is a 13 millimeter bolt. It is absolutely not fun to get that bolt out without removing the PTU first. So remove it and you'll have easy access to it. The bolt in question is this bolt right here. As you can see, here's your 3 bottom bolts that we took care of, these 2 bolts that we took care of, and this bolt here. That bell housing bolt would be very difficult to get to with the PTU still in place. We're going to remove some stuff on the bottom since we are already here. We have this 13 millimeter here, this 13 millimeter here, and then we have another one right there, along with one right up above it, right there, that we're also going to get while we are down here. We will also be tackling the torque converter bolts. I'm confident we can get this one with the electric ratchet. Now this one up in here though, that is going to be done with just a normal ratchet. Now at the end of this, you should have a total of 5 bell housing bolts that you have pulled. 4 of these bolts are the exact same length, which is the 4 bottom ones. Now the one on the top right that we just pulled out last is longer, like so. Make sure you keep this bolt separate and you know that this bolt goes in that exact spot, okay? Now, if you move the PTO around, the PTU or the transfer case in just the right way, you should be able to see that 13 millimeter bell housing bolt right there. Now, if you set this up correctly, put your PTU in just the right spot, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to just run a 10-inch extension with a shallow socket, and you will be able to reach in and get that bolt. Now, you can also run 2 extensions if you want to kick this further out. You can also run the 2 extensions and then put a gun on there and get it. It's however you want to do it, but this is how I'm doing it right here. This is how I'm going to show you. Now, I'm going to snake in. I've already broke it loose with my ratchet, so I'm going to come in with this impact. It is completely out. Here's a bottom view of the bolt. As you see, I can easily reach my hand in there and pull that bolt out. Now, while we are underneath the rig, we have a couple things that we would like to do. Looking right here, this is your rear transmission mount. There is 2 bolts here holding it in, and then there is a sneaky bolt in the back. If I remember correctly, these should both be 17 millimeters. Being very careful to show you here. Now, where my finger is, right there, there's that bolt. I know, that sucks. What you're gonna need is a flex head 17 millimeter ratcheting ratchet to get that out. So in order to access that bolt, we are going to need to remove bottom support. So we're gonna have to jump up top real quick to support the engine from the top so we can remove this. Before we do that, we will remove that, we will remove the torque converter bolts, and then we will jump up top and support the engine. Come on, push the tab back in, work it out, there we go. Just like that. Now we have access to the flywheel, which means we can get to the torque converter bolts. Next, you're going to want a 22 millimeter socket with a ratchet. I went with my 1/2-inch setup right onto the crank pulley bolt in the on position. Now you're going to turn this. Oh, do you see that? Until you see a bolt appear, like so. And then you're going to remove that guy, and you're going to do that a total of 4 times. And that's 4. Now you're gonna just set these in your magnetic tray. Torque converter bolts are extremely distinctive, and you know there was 4 of them. Next, we're going to put in our engine support bar, and we're going to run it to right about there. Just back just a tad. That way we can access this hook. I'm gonna put a chain here, and then this will keep the engine in place. Got the chain on, everything is ready. tightened it up just a little bit until it was nice and snug. Now we can go back underneath and we can remove that lower support. We're going to start off with this mount right here. This is a 16mm bolt. I'm going to use a shallow socket. Here's our first bolt. Second bolt is right here. This is an 18mm. Here at the front of the mount, you have two 15mm bolts. Just get your impact on there and zip her off. Sticking with the fashion here, put that there. Put that back there. You can then take your bolt back out of the tray for the mount, and you can actually put this guy just right here like this. And now that's in there safely. And then the rear bolt, right back where it goes in its home. Remember, the bolts always want to be in their home. Let them go home. It's funny, another thing to mention, we didn't actually need to do the bar just yet. I completely forgot that we hadn't actually done this mount yet. So that mount is still there. Okay, anyways, back to the bottom where we were. Hopefully you can see that. So I have the flex head ratcheting wrench in there just like this, and then you put it right over the bolt. So let's get started with that. Next, when you get it to the point where you can actually get it out, I like to sneak a magnet in here and push it up and then pull it back out. And that is that. Now we can easily remove the rear two because we know we just got this one out. Set this off to the side in your tray. There are those two bolts right there. You removed the front, so you can easily get those two out. So let's get to work on removing them. With those two bolts removed, this rear mount is now broke free. Set these bolts in your magnetic tray. That bolt holds in the mount to the bracket. We want to remove that. So you can either come from this passenger well and get it with extensions. It will be, from the looks of it, this will be a straight shot. Or you can reach in from the top here and you can actually go from back behind here and you can reach down. Grab it right there if you'd like. Do whatever you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and get this out and I will tell you how I did it. I decided to go with my two extensions reaching from the passenger side, and the reason I did that is so I could actually use my gun. All right, we went with a 16mm shallow with a wobbly, two 10-inch extensions, and we got this bolt right on out. Put it with your bracket bolts. I'd like to tackle our next challenging bell housing bolt. The bolt in question is this bolt right here on the bell housing, right there. Coming in from this direction and threading into the bell housing here, as you can see with those threads. Now, honestly, I prefer, and now I have the bolt out already, but I actually prefer to reach in just like that and actually get it that way. I found that way easiest rather than sneaking it in from the passenger side. We still have to remove this intake tube. We have some cooler lines to remove. We have our linkage to remove. Dipstick has to come out. Well, dipstick tube, I should say, has to come out. We have this bracket that needs to come out right here. So I think we should start with what I think is easiest. So it's going to be this connector here. So what you're going to do is right here, there's a little tab. You're going to push this in just like that. Push it in and turn it. This there, just like that, it'll come off. See, so, and as you turn this, it will come off just like that. And then you just pop it off. Now, as you can see, this connector has actually taken a little bit of a beating, but the notch is still in place. All the pins seem fine. Everything seems fine there, so we're just going to leave that alone. Now let's start off with these two coolant lines here. I already have removed the spring clamp on here. Now, there's two tools that you can use in this instance. Now, a very popular method to break suction here is a flathead screwdriver, but you can also use slide groove pliers, and you can also use these needle nose pliers that are actually made for hose clamps. So I'm going to show you the way that I was originally shown way back when, which was with these slide groove pliers. So all you do is you get it roughly the same width on your slide groove pliers, and you attach just like that, and then all you do is you want to grip it. You want to grip it just like this and turn it. And you don't want to put, see how as I'm doing this is slightly bending the aluminum, so you want to be careful when you're doing that. But if you look, you can see that this is breaking the suction. But as you can see, it is putting leverage on this aluminum, and so you want to be careful there. Suction has been broke from just giving it a little wiggle. Now, you could take your flathead screwdriver now and then work it down. You can start using your pliers. Whatever you do, just make sure you're careful while you're doing it. See, there you are. There's that hose off. Now, what we want to do is I'm going to show you how to remove these transmission cooler lines. Now, you have a black plastic cap here, and you have a gray plastic cap here. To not mix up these two lines, what you can do to identify, now these are rusty. You should be able to tell on your car if it's not rusty. Gray on the bottom, which this nut will be gray, and this line will be black. So you'll have a black nut and you'll have the gray nut, and they correspond to the colored caps here. Now, this clip that is holding it in place is one of these clips right here. You have these two ridges right here, which shows right there. There's ridge 1, there's ridge 2. Now we want to pop this up. And how we're going to pop this up, we're going to take a pick and we're going to get underneath right here, which let's spin it around. Right there. And you're going to just pull it out. I'm going to use a 90-degree pick to show you. So let me set this off to the side. So you just twist this up, which in your case, you won't be able to twist this up, so you're going to have to find an angle where you can get in right here. And you can just pull this up. So look, do you see that? Do you see how it's already coming up? Now, at this point in time, all you're going to do is you're going to sneak the pick. You're going to sneak it in and just pull it out. See that? Just pull it out, just like that. Which, at this point, the line just pops off. No problem. Now, with this little clip here, this is commonly found in like the GM rigs, early 2000 GM rigs, along with, well, these CVT coolers, of course. Now, you know how to remove these two lines, you know how to remove these two lines. Now, I want to show you the cooler removal, because the cooler removal is important as well. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't want to remove these lines, which is understandable, what you could do is you can pop these 4 10mm bolts. Now, there's one in each corner, and it just will fall off. Now, once that is removed, you can see all 4, well, it's not there anymore, but your 4 lines would be there. And inside, you have this O-ring here, replace this O-ring, clean up this mating surface, clean up this mating surface, and then in here, you have a little filter. You're going to want to replace this filter and this O-ring. The filter should come with this little gasket right here. Now, if you haven't done this to your transmission before, you're going to want this filter replaced, and you're going to want to go this route anyways. So I figured I would show you both. Both ways work. It's whatever you want to do. Like I said, I showed you both, so now that's your decision. And then another way to identify where the coolant line goes is you have one that comes from this top radiator hose here, right here, and it runs down. Underneath that hose then runs down to us, which is right here, this hose. So you know that this hose goes to the back of the cooler. Now that I have shown you how to do that on the other cooler, I'm going to now remove all of this real fast, and I will be right back. Now for this connector here, right here, you just push down right here and then pull that guy out, just like that. Intake tube is removed. It is either an 8mm or a little flathead screwdriver. Either one will get to the clamp and get it out. But now with that removed, we have access to some bolts that we need to get to, which is one bell housing bolt right there, that bell housing bolt right there, and then there's another bell housing bolt right there. We need to get all 3 of those, and when we do that, then we can actually push the starter free for that bolt there. I just took this guy and snaked it up in there, pulled it out, just like that. Now we can reach in and grab that bell housing bolt, which is another long bolt. It's a starter bolt. We're going to tackle that bolt right there with the ground on it. 15mm, the prior bolt was 15mm. What I ended up doing was I ended up just taking this guy right here, and I ended up actually snaking through just like that and popping it out. I did first break this loose with a wrench, the bolt loose with a wrench, and then I went in with the impact and removed it. Now at this point in time, looking at your starter, actually just looking at this hole, what you should do is you should just reach in just like this, because you have this space now. So just reach in, grab your starter, and just pull it forward. That's all you need to do. Just like that. Just, you're pulling it out of the bell housing so that it's not in the way of you and removing your transmission. Next, we have this piece down here. There we go. Pull that up. Be very careful with it, and then just tuck it out of the way. Next, we have a 13mm bolt right here. Disconnect that. Pull the cable out. Okay, just like that. Put the nut right back on there. If it's going to be nice here, I should just pull right up. Just go ahead and set it out of the way. There is another connector right underneath this hose right there. It is another push type connector. Push it, pull it out. Next, you have a T30 right here. You have a T30 right there. Those both need removed for your dipstick tube. Right here, sneak in with a ratchet and your T30 just right on there. And then use a 10-inch extension with your T30 on there and bring it up to here and break it loose there. Now, after you've removed those two bolts, you should be able to just reach right in, pull the tube out, just like that. Set this somewhere off to the side. Remember to put your bolts back where you've got them. The bolt head for this mount is a 17mm. The nut is an 18mm. At this point, before you remove this, you're going to want to put a jack up with some sort of plate and kind of support the transmission, because this will sink on you, and well, you don't really want that. So next, we're going to want to remove these 3 bracket bolts. It's a 19mm. After that is done, just pull them out. Pick up your bracket, so get it out of the way. Now, at this point, we should be able to start separating the bell housing from the engine. So I'm going to go from underneath, and I'm going to use a pry bar and see if we can get this separated. Looking at it right now, as you can see right there, we do have a split already where this is already separating. So we're just going to reach in carefully. I don't want to mess up this surface. We're just going to start removing it. How exciting. You guys have made it this far. Good job. Seriously, use a transmission jack for this. This is actually dangerous, so that's best case scenario for what I was just doing. We have the transmission out. Now at this time, there is 2 seals behind here that you would like to take care of. I can show you those. Let's pull out your torque converter. Set that down for now. And then right in here, you have your torque converter seal here, and you have your input shaft seal here. Replace both of these because you don't want to pull your transmission out to replace these 2 seals. Pull them out and replace them. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get this on film that I had replaced these. I don't know why, but I didn't. But afterwards, put your torque converter in. That was your first initial clunk. There's a second seat right there. And now we want it to seat one more time. Just like that. It won't have hardly any side to side once you've actually got it seated. After that, you're good to go. And then there's also your rear main seal behind that flex plate. You would like to do that, get that done. When you're already there, take care of it. You do not want to have to pull this transmission out again. So replace those seals. Today's a new day. I packed up. I got hungry. I got really hungry. So we're on for a new day. Let's sneak underneath the car here. I pulled out the torque converter. I replaced the input shaft seal, and I also replaced the torque converter seal. One of the 2 was leaking. I'm assuming the torque converter seal was the leak. Got that replaced. Now we can throw the transmission back up in. Mine's nice and seated. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna throw the transmission back up inside. I have a cherry picker that I'm going to be using because I'll show you. If you see right here how it came out, well, first off, this isn't the jack to do this, but I do not have the proper jack. I usually have most of the tools that are required to do stuff like this, but this is one of those times I don't have the jack. Another thing is, if you look right here, there's actually a lift point right here. I'm going to just hook to it and pull it up into place and then push it in. That, I feel like, is going to be the best way to do this, because I do not want to shimmy this on here and then carefully get it up in there and hope for the best. So that's what I'm going to do. If you have access to a floor jack, that's great. Use the transmission jack. We are all chained up and ready to start lifting this bad boy up in here. Okay, I'm liking where we're sitting, so the next thing we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to put a bell housing bolt to start sucking up the transmission to the engine. We're going to do another one on this side. We now have 2 lower bell housing bolts in. This went in really easy for for transmission. They normally don't like to just go right in like this. Now we're going to want some bell housing bolts in the top, because as you can see right here, we do still currently have a split, so we won't be able to check anything until we get that situated. I'm going to throw in one of the extra long bolts that we talked about up in here, because there is still a little bit of a split, and I think that that will bring it together. Let me get this spun up in here and then I'll meet you back. There's that bolt installed. It did end up tightening up the bell housing. Now, what we can do is we can test to make sure the engine spins freely. So let's do that. What you're gonna want is a 22 millimeter with a 1/2 inch ratchet. You're gonna throw it on here and you're gonna spin clockwise. And as you can see, aside from the compression fighting me, we spin freely here. So with that being said, we can now start putting in torque converter bolts. We can start doing a reverse order of what we had just done, taking it out, now putting it back in. Now remember, let me reach in with my hand. We do have this bell housing bolt that is hard to get in, and we would like to get this PTU back in right now. So we're gonna get this bolt put back into place, and then we're gonna put in our PTU, and then we'll do engine mounts. Now I would like to clarify that the bolt that I just showed you is going to be the longer bolt. You're gonna want this guy, not this guy. This one. That's going back in the tray. Hopefully you can see my finger wiggling. I got the bolt in. Now I did join the struggle bus here, and I wasn't able to get it from the top like I took it out. So what I ended up doing, I'll just show you, is I ran the ratchet through this spot right here, and I actually attached, and I just did that, and I got it. Now that that bolt is done, now we can actually start working on some mounts to make this thing a little bit more secure and stop using the engine hoist. As you can see, we are topside once again. I say as we can see a lot, as you can see. But looking here, we have, the transmission actually needs to go back. We need it to go back so we can line up with this mount. So we put the bracket to the mount, keep this in place. What we need to do is we need to actually start getting that into the place that we want it to be. So lifting this up has gotten us pretty close. We'll be able to move that into position, no problem. These pads both came off. They have little notches on them, so I'm gonna put them back the way the notches line up. Pull our bolts out that we left in place. The holes for this bracket are extremely chewed up. Grab your through bolt. You do not need to tighten it all the way down. We're just trying to get things in there loosely. This gives us some movement here. Ooh, that's one. That's two. Okay, now we are going to cinch them up. See what I mean? This one's just not pulling, but we do have, I do believe, we do have two of them. Now, we can get rid of this cherry picker. We do have side to side movement like this, but we no longer need the cherry picker in here. That mount is all taken care of. Now that we have this mount in, we can get rid of this support bar. And then after we remove the support bar, we're gonna go down beneath because I'd like to get the PTU or the transfer case actually seated in place before we continue any further. As you can see, I can take these links right off. Everything is good. Everything is sitting in place how we want it to. Okay, what I'd like to get done next is this PTU/transfer case. So as you can see, I lift mine up and immediately it doesn't want to go into place. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to reach back to the tail of the transfer case and look, see that? I was able to maneuver the transfer case by also putting my hand underneath the PTU here and then wiggling it from the back. And then that way you can turn the splines. You do have dowel pins, so you just wiggle this together. And this is why we haven't done the rear mount, because then there's articulation here with the entire thing. And that way we can actually get these 3 bolts started. Something I would like to address before we continue with this. Before we continue, you see that bolt right there? Let me go and grab it so you can see it. See that long bolt? Now, you want that long bolt to stay in the transfer case or the PTU before you put it up in here, because as you could see, it didn't want to come out. It was hitting right here. So make sure that bolt either was already in there, or you go and grab it and you go and put it in there before you go and seat this transfer case. After you have made sure that top bolt is in place, you will now take 3 of your 14mm bolts and we will get these guys started. Now that we know that is situated, what we can start doing is, while we're already down here, we do have this bell housing bolt here that needs to be put in, and we have that bell housing bolt that needs to be put in. Those are both the standard length 13mm bolts. So let's get both of those, along with grab your torque converter bolts. First bolt. Good enough for me. Next, we're going to do those torque converter bolts, which you know the drill. Put your 22mm on and spin that engine over. Ooh, we were trying to get a hole to line up, which looks like we got one right there. Here's a torque converter bolt. I'm going to use some blue Loctite. This is not a liquid. This is more like chapstick. We're going to throw the bolt in. Now, do not tighten this all the way down. And the reason why is because you want side-to-side movement out of this, just so as you're lining up your other bolts. So for now, what you're going to do is you're just going to thread it in lightly and then get on to the next one. Now, knowing that you have all your bolts in, what you can do is you can now tighten them. Afterwards, you can put your cover back in, and that is that step completed. Next, we want to get this rear mount into place. Okay, looking up from the back here, this is your rear mount. I have ran the bolt through. The bracket is still loose. We don't have any of the bolts in it yet, but you want to get this bolt in here first, and then tighten that down, then do the brackets, and we'll be good to go there. Tightening up that bolt, we have 2 10-inch extensions and a 16mm. Now, you may need a wobbly here. I have this Craftsman extension here that actually, in its second position, because it has 2 positions, you can lock it. Makes it nice and tight, or makes it so you pull it out and it's really bendy. So you may need a wobbly there. Now it's time to do the hard bolt on the bracket. So we're going to snake this guy right in here. I got to take my gloves off for this. And then if you're careful, you should be able to tilt it right side up and actually get it in there. Now, it doesn't look like I'm doing that. Your next option is going to be a magnet. Use the magnet at the top of the bolt head to get it through. This bolt ended up proving to be quite challenging for me. I ended up wiggling and jiggling. I ended up trying to use the magnet. I ended up, even as you can see, I ended up throwing a pry bar in there, and I was trying my best to actually move it around, and I finally ended up getting it here right at the end, but it was quite irritating. There we are. Now, you can see that I am sneaking up that flex head ratcheting wrench. This took me, and I hate to even say this, but this took me a total of 3 minutes to actually get that bolt tightened down with that wrench. Now, I'm sure there's a better way to do this. I mean, as I was lifting up the transmission, I'm sure what could have happened was I could have ended up, you know, just bolting the front of the mount down, and even just loosely getting the bolt started probably would have been fine. The 3 minutes this took felt like it was an eternity to get this bolt into place. And I'm sure some of you have run into a situation like this before. This was not, by any stretch of the imagination, a fun bolt, which is why I wanted to get it done before the 2 rear bolts, because then you're a lot more excited once you're done with this. Good job on getting that front bolt. Now we're going to do these 2 rear bolts, and these will be a cakewalk for you, and considering what you just did. Both rear bracket bolts are in. Good job. Now, while we are underneath the car, we're going to install this guy right here. Now, if up to this point you've been putting your bolts back where they go, you should have everything you need already lined up in place. Get this guy out. Get all our bolts out. Now, let's pick this guy up. Insert it up through the bracket. What you're going to want to do is just loosely put everything in place, starting with the rear bolt. Take one of your front bolts, get it ran in. See, now you can let it hang. Do it on this side. Next, take this bolt, push up on the cross member, and feed the bolt through the hole, just like that, until you get some threads biting. Front is a 15, rear bolt 18, mount bolt is a 16. Congrats. Now at this point in time, you've done all 3 of your engine mounts, or your transmission mounts, whatever you'd like to call them. You've got all 3 of those in, done, and dusted. you've got your torque converter bolts in, and you've got a fair amount of your bell housing bolts in as well. You're doing really, really good. Next, let's get this driveline actually thrown back in here. There's that. Next, we have these bolts. Remove your bolt. Slide that guy into place. Run your bolts up. That bolt there. This bolt here. You got your 4 bolts right there for your driveline. We are almost done with the driveline portion. Remember those 4 bolts and these 2 bolts here. Right up in there, you can see those 2 bolts. Then you have the other bolt right above, right above the heat shield, as you see right there. Now to clarify, there is 1 bolt in. That bolt right above it, that is not the hole. See that bolt right there? To the left of it, that's your next bolt. That bolt I do recommend going up from up top and getting it that way. So coming up from up top, I put my socket on it so you could see it. It's a lot easier to reach it from up top. This is Editor Cody here, and I just wanted to point out that I'm really sorry. I did not at any point in time film just a quick, here, throw the axles in. Anytime after you've installed the PTU/transfer case, you can go ahead and throw your CV axles back into place. You're good to go. I'm sorry again, I didn't mention it. I've been detailed up until this point, and I dropped the ball on that one. Apologize. Okay, that's more than tight enough for me. Now for the bolt behind the heat shield. We need to get that one taken care of. Kind of behind the heat shield. I'll do my best to film that one. All right, I really hope you can see this. I'm going to sneak in with my stubby first. Now, there is a possibility that you could actually reach it from the passenger fender well and reach in. I didn't end up trying it. It just looked a little bit... It seemed to me that I would have had to articulate my arms in just a way to actually reach up in there and get it. So I didn't actually even try it. You're more than welcome to give it a try and then drop a comment and see, like, if it did work out for you, share it with the rest of us. No, I slipped off. Nice and tight. Your next bell housing bolt will be right in here. Let me get a bolt started so you can actually see it. And there it is, just like that, which I can reach it from underneath. So hopefully I can just leave you right here and then I can actually zip this bolt in. Top view so you can see it. Ran in from right here. Let's pop this out so you can see the setup. We have a 13mm shallow. Then you have this Craftsman extension that has the wobble to it. That's the only way you would be able to do it. And then a 6-inch extension on top of that. And that was the setup. Coupled with the Milwaukee ratchet. That can be done with anything, of course. Now at this point, you should have these 2 bolts left. These right here are for your starter. Let's get them installed. There's the first bolt started. There's the second bolt started. Starter bolts are in. I can even show you with this one. Now that we're up here, we have a couple things that we can do. So let's take our cable here. Go ahead and push that guy in to place like so. You should hear a click. Take this hose, put it back like that. Excellent. Next, get that ran in. Always go to the witness marks. Next, we want to do our dipstick tube. It is 2 T30 bolts. It is 1 T30 bolt now that hold in towards the top and the bottom of the dipstick tube. You fucking bitch. I'm going to run in with the extension over the top like this. And we're just going to do it just like that. Nice and snug. That's all you want. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see this. Probably not. I'm having a hard time seeing it. Certainly looks like it'd be way easier. It's easier, but it's not easy to do it with one hand. Next is going to be your transmission service. I originally just put mine up with only the 4 bolts in each corner. What we know is that these are 10mm. So right here is your transmission filter. Right here. You have a 10mm bolt holding it here, a 10mm bolt holding it here, and a 10mm bolt holding it here. Now, I'm going to pull this out. This is a new filter, but it would be wrong if I didn't end up showing you at least. All you got to do is then just pull the filter out, just like that. That's all you have to do. Now you got one bolt that is longer than the other two. That bolt has a very special home right here. What you would do now with your new filter is you would lube up this gasket right here, O-ring, whatever. You would lube it up, and then you want to install it. So you just put it up here like this, give it a couple wiggles, and it'll kind of thump in. It won't make a noise, but it'll thump in. Long bolt first so that you don't get mixed up on where it goes. It goes right there. And then your next two, just like that. Then zip them up. Then the next thing I'm going to do is this whole surface is actually coated with the ATF. So I'm just going to dry the surface off, and then I don't like getting drips everywhere, so I actually like to wipe off the drips. And then you're ready to install your pan. Before we can install the pan, we need to give this a brake clean bath. Now, this is a brand new gasket, so I'm going to set this off to the side. Next, get your brake cleaned. This is the chlorinated version, so this is the kind you can drink. I got a good one for you. Do you know why they gave you 2 magnets? Because they knew that you were going to have trouble, and they wanted to catch all the metal that was going to cycle through your transmission. You see that? Look, this one was cooked for too long. It's got some burn spots. Then we're just going to plop and plop, just like that. Make sure your new gasket is on. You got a couple dowel pins. You got a pin here, and you got a pin here, or guide pins, or whatever you'd like to call them. I don't really care. Just makes it easier to set the pan. And we all know how I'm doing it, is I'm starting with the corners. That way I can move on to the rest of this pretty quick. I'm gonna get all the bolts snug. That's all I'm gonna do. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in a crisscross motion. So from here to here to here to here to here to here to evenly tighten the pan back up and to this transmission. All the bolts are in and nice and snug. Now we are going to go and do a final all the way around of tightening them up. I will put up on the screen, I will put up torque spec. The bolts are all tight. Now if you look closely, even though this connector is broken, this is how it came on the used transmission, there's a little notch here. And if you look right here, there's a little notch right there. You're going to line those 2 notches up, which it should be pretty apparent of when it actually lines up. And then you're going to take your spinning clamp, like this guy right here, and you're going to spin it, see? You're going to spin it clockwise. Be careful not to mess up the pins. If you did it right, it should look something just about like that. Now, we need to get these cooler lines back in, which, like we previously discussed, gray to gray and black to black. So we know that this line right here goes here. So push that on. And then this black line right here goes on top, just like that. Next, we're going to take these little clips right here and we're going to put them back in their home. I don't even know how I'm going to film these. They're quite difficult to film. Then afterwards, after you get one clipped in, push that little plastic cap back over the top. You should hear a snap, a pop, a something. Snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies. That's what you should sound. Both popped into place. Now for these 2 lines. You know, every single time, so there's a special tool for these spring clamps. And every time I'm like, I don't need this stupid tool. And then I deal with spring clamps that are exceptionally annoying. And then I get mad because I didn't buy the tool. Got one on. Let's do this next one. Okay, to recap, we got this main harness here. We got this guy right here. We got these 2 coolant lines, and we got those 2 cooler lines as well. That should be everything there. Next, we're gonna do this bracket right here, that bolt, this bolt, and that bolt. We're gonna install this battery tray next. You have 4 bolts and a nut. If you look down there, you have 4 bolt holes and a nut. Let's put you in a position where you can see this all go down. Battery tray is in. Well, let's put the ECU back. I didn't film tightening this tube in because, well, that thing is annoying. And then just like that. Second one. Voila, just like that. Couple tens. Not very tight. Not very tight. Got an 8mm for right here. Perfect. Now, our next step, let's get it filled. Pull this little cap out. Geez, that did not want to come out. It's supposed to spin in there, but it was not doing that at all. Put your funnel in. I'm going to start off with putting in 4 quarts. Looks just like engine oil. Here's the fluid that I'm using today. This just came straight from O'Reilly's. And our last quart. Now you might be wondering why you're just putting 6 in. You didn't measure the fluid that you drained out of it. You didn't anything. You don't have a dipstick. Well, I do have a dipstick for this car. Looking here, here is the dipstick. Here's all the markings on it. Now, how would you read it? I'll show you. So we got this chart right here, and this is all the transmissions that it's going to work on. Now, here, you'll pick the transmission you have, and you will go off of this right here. Where did I end up getting this? I ended up just getting this from a seller off of eBay. This does work. If you go and buy one from the dealership or wherever, you're going to get the same thing. All right, here's the fluid they're putting in the transfer case. Make sure it is GL5 8W90. You can pick any brand. This is what I grabbed from O'Reilly's. To confirm it is a 17mm. Okay, we wanted to go until it overflows. And I think it's doing just that, just fine. Just one more pump just to see. I'm thinking so. Yeah, looks like about half a quart is gone. Let's put this guy back in here. Now for the fun part, putting the battery back. And we can still easily access the cable in case we need to do any adjusting. Battery is in. I did have to replace this bolt here. As you can see, it just wasn't clamping down enough. Don't forget your battery tie down. And then last but not least, your scoop. Now I did lose a little bit of coolant, so what we are going to do is we are going to top it off. Can I do this without spilling it all over the Jeep? I still spilled it. Went a little overboard there. Now I'm sure I'm gonna need to take a little bit more, but let's start her up. All right, we are inside the cab. Now, I have the engine running. What you're wanting to do, you're gonna wanna put this in reverse, let it sit for 10 seconds, and then neutral, then drive. Now we're gonna wanna get this up to temp so we can check the transmission. Now, it doesn't appear that there's a gauge on here. There might be one that actually, there might be a reading inside the computer itself, which I'm going to take a look at. Then we will check fluid level. Looking here at the live data on the scanner, we do have a trans temp of 104 degrees. I've been sitting for roughly 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes here. Your ideal temp range will be right around 180 degrees. All right, I just checked the fluid. So we are right here at 30 millimeters cold range. We're a little bit past 100 degrees, so we're somewhere right where we're supposed to be. Now I'm going to take it for a drive, and since this is a used transmission, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take it for a little bit of a longer drive. And so you'll want to check it at 180 degrees, and you'll want to be at around 40 millimeters once it's hot. I think we'll be right where we need to be. I took about 6.5 quarts in the trans, which should be good to go. I will get back to you once I'm done with the drive, and we'll do a final fluid check. It is a new day. It got a little bit too dark after I was driving. I drove for about an hour in it, and it never actually got up to temp. It got up to a 131 at peak. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to use the dipstick. Pull this out, just set it off to the side, pull your cap, which it should just twist out, but this tube is messed up. Let me pull that out. Here's the dipstick. Here's all the markings. This is all in millimeters. So what you're going to do is you're going to put this in the tube, and you're going to run it until it bottoms out. Do not force it, because that'll give you a false reading. So you can see the dipstick's a tad too long. That's completely okay. You just want to run it until it bottoms out, then pull it back out and get your reading. Which for me, let's see if I can focus on it. We are sitting at, it was just over a hair over 30. Just put a tad bit more in there. Looking at it, we are just a tad under 40 millimeters. See? Which is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Make sure you're doing it on level ground, in neutral. You want to be tad under the 40 millimeters, or right in there is fine at 170 to 108 degrees, right in that ballpark area. If you found this transmission swap video helpful, make sure to smash the like button, maybe consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Bye.